your Amazon listings feeling under the weather? Never fear, because Jake, the listing doctor, is here. Jake can treat even the most poorly performing listings.
Oh, doctor, you have to help me. I let ChatGPT write my listings, and now my rankings have tanked.
So don't wait. Better call Jake, the listing doctor, today.
All right, Mr. Lenny, I pulled up your file here.
Okay.
And this right here is a reverse ASIN search. So basically, these are all the top keywords that are driving sales or traffic to your listing, and it's about 700 right now.
Oh, that's great, right?
It is pretty good. However, if we use these advanced filters here, the first thing I want to do is see how many of those 700 keywords that you're ranking for are high volume. So to do that, I'm going to use 500 as the exact minimum here. And by clicking apply, you'll see that list now goes down to 66.
66 is good, right?
It's not bad. So, however, one thing I also want to do here is coming over to this organic rank column.
Yes, what does that tell us?
So basically, if I put 20 in here, that's going to show us all of these keywords that are high volume and relevant that you're ranked within the top 24. So page 1, essentially.
Okay,
now,
great.
if I click apply, you'll see that list cuts down to 3.
Is that a problem?
That's a problem. So you're only ranking for these 3 keywords on page 1. And usually this is a listing problem. So maybe something in your title, your bullet points, your back-end search terms perhaps, but you're not indexing on page 1 at least organically for a lot of your search terms here.
Okay, so would you say that this is a great way to kind of prescribe how well your listing is performing on keywords for anyone else that's out there watching?
Absolutely. This is a good way of finding out where you stand organically compared to your rankings. But now what we want to do is actually bring in your competitors, your top competitors, and see what keywords they're ranking for, and that will inform you on what keywords you need to add to your listing here.
Okay, great. So how do we go about doing that?
So to do that, let's clear these filters here. And now what I want to do is just run a search for one of these terms that are relevant. So washable pee pads for dogs is probably the most relevant term for your product.
Yep.
And then at this point, if we pull up the Jungle Scout extension here, I want to get the top 9 ASINs and add them to Keyword Scout because it can hold 10 ASINs. But to do that first, I'm actually going to remove all these sponsored product ads. Typically, you don't want to look at any products that are basically cutting the line. We're looking for organic ranking. So now at this point, I'm actually gonna skip Amazon Basics here just because they're Amazon, but I'm gonna take these next 9 ASINs and then copy them over to Keyword Scout.
So you're saying that we can have up to 9 competitors inside of Keyword Scout?
Including yours, so up to 10 ASINs in total, but because we already have your ASIN, we're actually just gonna include 9 more here. So then we'll hit search here, and now as we come down here, we'll see a way bigger list now, about 6,000 keywords that all of these competitors, including your ASIN, is ranking for.
Okay, that's great to know. So do we want to work with all 6,000 keywords here?
So 6,000 is gonna be a lot to try to squeeze in your listing.
Right.
So really our goal here now is to use the filters to 1, find the highest volume keywords, and 2, to find the most relevant keywords.
Okay.
So to do that, for high volume first, I like to use this exact match filter here, and I'm gonna put 500 as the minimum, so only show me keywords where customers are coming on Amazon and typing it in 500 times each month or more.
Right.
Now, this is pretty arbitrary, 500. In your niche, it could be 200, 1,000, 800. So just play around with that. Just from experience on this niche here, I'm just gonna add 500 to begin with.
Okay.
And now as we apply that filter, we went from 6,000 to 500 here, which, you know, is a lot better than 6,000.
Okay. Would you work with 500, or is that still too many? What do you think?
Yeah, 500 is not bad, but one thing I want to look at now is the relevant keywords. So if we scroll down this list here, let's see if we find any irrelevant keywords. So here's a good one: incontinence pads for women. Now, obviously, you're selling dog pads, right?
Right, yeah.
What I'm curious on, if we scroll over here, is how many of these competitors are ranking for that term. And in this case, we can use this organic ranking ASINs count filter, and we're only seeing 1 competitor. So of these 9 competitors here, for some reason, 1 of them is ranking on that irrelevant term. To try to get rid of a lot of those keywords, we can come back up here to these filters here, and in this one right here, in the ASINs count one, we can put 3. And the reason we're gonna do 3 is because if 3 competitors are ranking on a term, then that's a pretty good indicator that maybe you should be ranking on that as well. Because sometimes 1 or 2 competitors might rank for a irrelevant term that maybe doesn't relate to your product, but if 3 competitors are ranking for it in your niche, that's a good sign that maybe you should be ranking for that keyword too.
Right, that makes sense.
And now we went from 500 to 103 keywords. So this is so much better, way more manageable to actually try to include these in your listing.
So for anyone out there that's looking to like narrow down to the high search volume and most relevant keywords, Would you say that somewhere in here is a good amount to aim for of, say, maybe 100 to perhaps 500 keywords?
Yeah, I'd say keep in mind first with Keyword Scout, the 103 here is referring to phrases. So you're gonna see similar words, like we see pads in the first 2 keywords. For that, I would probably recommend anywhere from 100 to 500, or you could potentially even do 1,000, but I'd be really careful on that and maybe try to weed it down to like the 500 mark. So we have 103 keywords here. I think that's pretty good, but we can always come back later and add more if we need to. Real quick, what I wanna do here is actually look at this first keyword, puppy pads, right? It's your highest volume keyword here at just over 161,000 monthly searches for. Nice. But if I scroll over here and look at these columns here that are organic. So for example, there are 2,000 products on Amazon that are organically showing up for the search term, right?
Yep.
But you're ranked outside of the top 100. Now, of the 6 competitors that you're looking at, so there's actually a few who aren't ranking for this term, 6 of those competitors, their average organic rank is 36, so significantly better than yours. That means you're ranked 7 out of 6 here. So this is a perfect example of a search term that you really wanna weave into your title, your bullet points, really everything, your backend search terms, add to your images, really everything you can to get more people to realize that this is a good product, that they should click on it, and you wanna add this really everywhere you can to your listing.
And just so I can clarify, you're saying that because 6 of my top competitors are ranking on this keyword, and it's got obviously a lot of search volume. Therefore, it just sort of double proves that this is a keyword that I should be considering.
Absolutely. So what we're gonna do here is just take all these keywords and add them to a keyword list now.
All right, so we've got a keyword list now of the top 100, highest search volume, most relevant keywords, but now how do I go about optimizing my listing? What do you prescribe here?
First off, you know I'm not a doctor, right? So in order to create data-driven listings, both quickly and effectively, I'd recommend using a tool like Listing Builder that helps simplify the optimization process. So here I've just imported your listing and added in your keyword list. Now we can quickly scan your listing to see all the highest volume keywords in green, medium volume keywords in yellow, and lowest volume keywords in gray. You also have these keyword banks. This one over here helps keep track of all your used keywords, and this one over here helps keep track of all of your keywords, including the ones not being used in your listing. So for example here, it looks like you're not using the word chuck anywhere in your listing.
What is chuck? I don't know what that is. Where did that word come from?
Yeah, so right now we're just looking at a bunch of keywords in a bank. But if we want to take out the keywords and just look at the phrases now, what we can do is see where every keyword is coming from. Now, if we come down here to the medium volume keywords, looks like it's coming from Chuck's Pad Washable. So that's the phrase, and it's getting over 1,400 searches each month.
Okay, I mean, that's like a lot of search volume there, but I still don't know what that is. Do you?
I don't, no idea.
Okay, let's ask my favorite AI. Okay, it looks like these get used in the healthcare system. They get used with humans. So why should I add this keyword to my listing? How do I know that it's even relevant?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I'm also curious about this as well. But one little trick we can do is head over to Keyword Scout and enter that term in here to find other relevant keywords.
Okay.
So now when I come down here to the bank we're gonna find a bunch of other terms that people are using to end up buying this type of product. So it actually looks like, puppy pads and dog pads and pee pads. The 3 words directly underneath Chuck's pee pads here. So it does look like people are coming to Amazon to buy Chuck's pads, but then end up buying puppy pads as well. So I think your product, this is a good use case that you may not be familiar with.
Obviously there's a connection there with puppy pads, dog pads, but I'm super curious if my competitors are using this keyword or how many of them might be.
Right, so to find that out, what we can do is actually go back over to that search that we had where we were looking at all of our competitors, right?
Yep.
And now I just wanna find that keyword. So I'm just gonna enter that here in the includes keyword filter and then click apply. So now what we can do is use this top keyword here, which is that keyword, scroll over here and find that, okay, so about 3 of your competitors are using this.
Wow.
And you're actually ranking for it as well, but you're in the 4th position. And you're actually showing up in sponsored product ads as well. So it looks like maybe an automatic campaign is picking that up. So it is a relevant term that people are typing in and apparently buying from you as well as your competitors.
Okay, cool. So I should be using this keyword, but at the same time, I don't want to confuse anyone that I'm selling Chuck's Pads Washable. So what's the best way to use this keyword?
So yeah, you're right. You don't want to use that in your title or maybe even in your bullets or description. So this is a great example of a keyword that I would actually add to the back end keywords here. So you could add Chuck's in here because we already have the term washable and pads already in your listing.
Right.
So Chuck's is the one that you want to add in here. Now I also did notice on ChatGPT that Chuck spelled with a X also worked as well. And potentially people are searching for that as well. So I'd add both those in just to cover it.
Okay, great. So should we keep adding back-end search terms in, or is there something more impactful that we can do to optimize this listing?
Yeah, so we sort of went off track a little bit. That's okay. We were looking at that keyword that was at the top of the bank. Back-end keywords are great, but I would spend the majority of your time and really most of your effort on optimizing the title. Your title is the most heavily weighted section of your listing from Amazon's point of view. So you really want to spend a lot of your effort there. So on Amazon, a good product title will have your brand name at the front, followed by the most relevant and descriptive phrase of what your product is. And after this point, in no real particular order, it's best to list the benefits, the use cases, and any specifics like the size or variation name. But here's the thing, you don't just want to keyword stuff your highest volume keywords. So as with your entire listing, making it readable is the key to increasing your conversion rate. Okay, so let's head over to your title here and start to optimize it. Now, when I'm looking at your title here, let me ask a question. Like, do you think in the beginning here, we have Jungle Creations, which is great, that's your brand, and then pee pads for dogs. Do you believe that to be the most descriptive and most intentional word that you can add here?
I think that sounds right. If I also just kind of look over at our keyword bank here, I can see it's got 59,000 searches. So I feel like it describes the product and also has a huge amount of search volume, if not one of the highest there. I think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I would argue you could actually be more descriptive here. And although, it's a little bit lower search volume, washable pee pads for dogs at 20,000 monthly searches, in my opinion, would be a higher intentional term that you should put in here. So if you add washable in here, the reason I'm gonna make this case is because, there are disposable options on the market. So when you're selling your product here, I think it's really important outside of the image to make it very clear that you're selling washable pee pads rather than disposable. So in my opinion, I would put washable over there, even though it has lower search volume, but you're still getting the added benefit of having pee pads for dogs in here. Amazon's not looking for your keywords to be in one single phrase. And also there's no benefit of repeating keywords. So in my opinion, this is way more descriptive.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because we know some of the biggest keywords are things like puppy pads, and probably the most common thing is when you go to puppy pads is the disposable one. So that's definitely something that a lot of people are looking for when they see our product. So it does make sense to be clear that ours aren't the disposable ones and they are these reusable or washable pee pads. Okay, so what I hear you saying here is that we should be considering our highest search terms in our title, but at the same time also be kind of marrying that with intent. And sometimes there might be a slightly higher intent keyword that maybe doesn't have as much search volume, but it might be a better fit for our title.
Exactly. And then also as we work through your title, as well as just the rest of your listing here, keep in mind our goal here should be to get to at least 70% of our keywords used. And right now we're at 59%. So yeah, we want to add in as much keywords as we can and hopefully high volume keywords, but we also want to marry that with intent and make sure it's the most relevant keyword or most relevant title you can possibly make. So let's work on the rest of this listing and try to turn some of these yellows and grays into greens.
Okay, cool. So I can see underpads, incontinence, XL are yellow. I can even see a couple of gray ones, which I imagine isn't good. We've got whelping and breed. Are these the words that we're gonna start trying to swap out?
I think so, yeah. So let's start maybe with underpads here. And maybe referring to our list over here. So we're trying to include the highest volume keywords in green and also make sure it's readable. Okay. We don't just want to keyword stuff.
So we're gonna be looking at these keywords that we haven't used here. We've got things like bed, puppy pads, mats, playpen. This is what we're using?
Exactly. I'm trying to think where should we start here with bed perhaps? Where would bed fit in here as a replacement? So yeah, whelping box liner is one of the use cases. So we're saying whelping box liner is one of the use cases for this. Do you think perhaps, bed liner would be a better use case to put here in the title?
I think that works. So
that would change a gray, and actually it would get rid of box, which is a green, but I think potentially that could be better. As we can see, bed is a green keyword there, and bed liner would be a very popular phrase as well.
All right, so another yellow one here is underpads. If we go over and look for any words that are similar, I guess I'm drawn to mat. Do you think mat would work as a replacement there?
That's a good idea. A training mat looks like a very popular phrase.
I can see that underpads there has just under 4,000 searches per month, but can also see that mat has 50,000. So definitely like an improvement there in terms of search volume.
Absolutely. And then, that gray one here for training, it makes sense. I would keep that in here. For potty training, that makes sense. I wouldn't remove it.
Right.
So I guess we could work on now to the incontinence one here. Potentially there's a better keyword there. It isn't a bad keyword there. So I think even puppy playpen might be interesting. It's one of the keywords here with 37,000 search volume. What's the incontinence?
It's only 1,300
yeah.
or 1,400 there. So yeah, I think that would make sense for puppy playpen. Yeah, I think that still reads well. So I guess that's like one of the things that we're thinking about as we're doing this. We want it to be readable and make sense.
Exactly. You don't also want to keyword stuff for the sake of having all green. So for example here, like our next yellow keyword, XL, unless the term extra large was green,
okay,
I wouldn't change that because it's shorter, it makes more sense. In fact, it's gray. So
right, so XL's sort of more common or is gonna be better for us anyway.
It just reads better in my opinion. You know, it's subjective, but I guess now breed would be the last one here. Are there any keywords that we could potentially replace breed with?
Oh, I mean, I can see the word pet there that's got 24,000 searches.
Yeah, good call.
Let's see.
Where's breed on
here? Small,
here?
medium, large, or XL pet. I think it reads well. And if we look at breed, okay, so breed only has 200 searches. So I think it would make a lot more sense to put in pet, as that still seems readable to me, but you know, has a lot more search volume behind it.
I agree.
Okay, so do you think we need to do any more here? It looks like we have improved the level of yellow to green quite a bit. Where are we at with our keywords?
We're pretty good. So we passed our threshold of 78, which is great. We did that on our title alone. And that's the goal. We want 70% of our keywords added to our listing in general, including the bullet points, description, and back end. However, your title, again, is the most heavily weighted section. So if we can fill that, that's great. In fact, I'd be really curious what would happen if we deleted all of our other, feature keywords, description to see where we're at there. But, seeing 78%, that's great so far. Now, after writing an optimized title, your next step is to focus on your bullet points. And just know that while it is important to add more of your keywords in here, the main goal should be to drive more conversion. So we'll now go through and try to add more of our medium and low volume keywords to our bullet points, but also just keep in mind that you don't need to repeat any keywords that you already have in your title. Okay, now moving on to the product description. So we're currently using A+ content, so we can actually skip this section. But if you're not brand registered for this section, it's best to reiterate your features and benefits that you wrote about in the bullet points, but in more detail as you're allowed up to 2,000 characters. And keep in mind, when a customer is shopping on the Amazon mobile app, the product description is actually ahead of the bullet points, so you really don't want to skip this section. Okay, now moving on to your backend search terms, as long as you created a strong keyword list, there's no reason why every single keyword here shouldn't be highlighted. And again, there's no benefit in actually repeating any of the words that we have already in our listing. So just make sure you scrub through your keyword bank and add in only the strongest keywords that will help drive more traffic to your listing. Now up here at the top, you can easily sync these changes over to Amazon. And once those changes go live, you'll now want to shift your focus from SEO to conversion rate optimization. That's because when you get additional traffic, you want to make sure that a good percentage of those who land on your listing convert into a sale. So one of the best ways to drive more conversions is by increasing your product reviews.
But if getting reviews is something that you struggle with, we made a complete guide on the best strategies and show you exactly how we went from 0 to 500 reviews within our first year of selling a brand new product. So make sure to watch this next video to learn everything you need to know about getting more reviews.